Hello, everybody. Sorry, it was a bit loud. So, my name is Nathalie Dreyfus. I'm based in Paris. I'm an IP/IT attorney doing French and European work, doing everything in IP, trademark, design, copyright, appellation of origin, and also co-focus on domain name strategy, domain name litigation. I've been involved with the domain name business since 1998. I'm a WIPO panelist, also a panelist at the forum, also in Asia, AD, and DRC. So we have quite a broad view on what's going on the internet. Some of you registrar probably already received perhaps a cease and desist letter from us. I've seen some attending the venue, but we always find a friendly manner to end things. So today I'm just here to talk about key specificity of the .fr for France. I mean, and some news about it, because some of you are not really familiar with how it works in France. It's not the major domain name extension compared to the GTLD, but it's an important CCTLD. We are going to have some figures about it. So when we talk about .fr, the domain names, I mean, it's very, very geographically anchored. I mean, it's .fr, I mean, on the way the ethnic and how they want to put it, it's really, it has to have a connection with France. So it immediately embodies France. So it has an impact on the French market, on the SEO, and the .fr, the extension, it influences a search engine when ranking the website in France. So if you have like a .fr, you have a better visibility, online visibility in France. And also, what is very specific about .fr is that they really wanted to do it right and be on the legal side, and provide legal protection to domain name owners, meaning uh, you need to comply with intellectual property law. I mean, not infringing trademarks, domain names, also trade names, appellation of origin, even names. It's really broad. Also, you have to comply regarding data protection under the GDPR, which is very strong in Europe, and also all the fraud corpus legislation. Ah. So the idea of the .fr is to have like a sense of proximity. It's like it's really brand image and trust. So that the consumer will perceive businesses with the .fr as really a local business, and that they can trust, and also that abide to law, to the regulation, and especially to French law, and also European law. So it's like a local market strategy. I mean, the role of the .fr, enhancing local marketing effort on reaching French consumers. It is highly regulated by or the French registry, the AFNIC, because AFNIC is first responsible for in managing and overseeing the .fr registration, the domain name, the .fr domain name registration, but also the overview or the rules on for the registration. And third, they're also in charge of the um, alternative dispute resolution procedures. And we have two in France. We'll come back to that, called the Cirelli and Parle Experts. And the Parle Expert is handled by WIPO, but in fact, it's handled by WIPO and AFNIC, and AFNIC is really involved with these procedures. So just to give you some figures, but you had already some so I'm gonna go quite quickly about the domain name market, and we will put the friend .fr in perspective with this market. So if you look at the global market, you see that, of course, and you all know that the .com is really the king of the system, I would say. And the GTLDs, I mean, if you really the most important domain names, if you see, like, we have 170 million if you just add .com on .net. But the CCTLDs are also important. And .fr is quite a strong player on performer in Europe, with like a steady growth. So let's see how it works. So if you look at the CCTLDs, well, you have China first, really more than 21 million. And you can see that .fr is like 3.6 million today. It's very far from Germany, because we're all French and German, we always compare. If you see the .de, it says more than 17 million, so we're really far behind. But if you see the .eu for Europe, it's a 3.2. So w- if you go in depth in the .fr, you can see then nearly 11% of the domain name in 2023 were registered by entities outside of France, mostly based in Europe, like the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, and Spain, but also people out of the European Union, but on the European territory, like the Swiss. Interesting. In December 2024, we had more than 4.2 million domain names. So now in 25, we have less, and we're gonna see why. Because we had like annual growth of more than 2%, and the national market share reached more than 40% and continues to rise. But 2025, there were a high deletion rate and high volatility. So why? Why? Because well, a lot of people registered the domain, but didn't keep them. I mean, we have a low rate retention rates because there were a lot of opportunistic registration, especially after with the post-COVID economic effects. And with the post-COVID economic effects, a lot of entities abandoned their domain names on .fr. And also, what is very important, and why we can explain how we can explain that, is also the AFNIC policy, which is very strict and will take down any domain and will take all anti-measure cause deletion, and will take down any domain that not comply with the rules, especially GDPR, fraud, or so France. It's .fr is not only France. I mean, for AFNIC at least, but it's in the same corpus of domain. You have also l'île de la Réunion, so the .re. You have Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, .pm, and you have the French Southern and Antarctic lands, .tf, and Wallis and Futuna, and Mayotte. Um, so what are the current rules? And that's something very important, and see why we are very centered on France. And as I said at the beginning, to own a domain name on .fr, you need to have a connection with France. So any individual or entity must demonstrate a legal connection to the European Union or to the EFTA, the European Free Trade Association. And if you're an individual, you need to prove residency, or and if you're a company, a registered office in France or within EU or EFTA. So this also shorter the possibility to register a domain name on the .fr. So you need also to have a valid contact information, but so an accurate and update contact details are mandatory. And if you don't provide that, then the domain name can be suspended or even deleted. And as I said at the beginning, you have to comply with French regulation on EU, intellectual property rights, GDPR, data privacy obligation, on anti-fraud and consumer protection rules. So there are also some terms that are forbidden. For example, the .gouv.fr. You cannot, since 2021, you cannot register a domain name with this kind of extension, because it is only for official French government entities. And also, there is like a large connection between AFNIC, but also the anti-fraud, the French anti-fraud agency called the DGCCRF, and also the ARCOM, who is looking at piracy online. So, as I told you, French individual, you need a valid address in France. Legal entity, you need to be based in France or have like, a study establishment in France. And if you're a foreign, you have to prove a connection with France. So for the renewals, you can renew from 1 to 10 years. And the holder is responsible for the domain name management, including updating contact information. So because we are here in the UK, let's just do a focus on UK, because UK citizen and company used to be able to register domain name .fr domain name before the Brexit, but since the Brexit in 2021, as they are no longer member of the EU, it has consequences. So according to the French regulation, they are no more eligible for .fr domain names. So they need to have like an establishment in France. So before Brexit, before end of December 2020, UK nationals were eligible for .fr domains, but since the Brexit, they are not eligible, no eligibility without an address or an establishment in France or EU or the EFTA, including Switzerland. But the domain name that they were registered before, they are maintained. So I would say that France has really a unique approach, because they embodied domain names directly with the broader legal order. I mean, with legal and ethical responsibility. So we have a very strong regulatory framework. And also recently we got even more, because we have new laws that reinforce monitoring and control on online content. So it grants the authorities like anti-fraud agency or copyright piracy agency to intervene very fast and in cooperation with AFNIC to seize any infringement regarding a domain name on .fr. So regarding dispute, as I told you, we also have like a unique set for the dispute. It's not only like for the UDRP that combating fraud in domain name registration. It's much broader because it's all the it includes intellectual property, but not only. I mean, we so you can base like you can also litigate in this alternative dispute resolution on a trademark matter, which you cannot do for UDRP, and also for unfair competition. So it's very broad, and you need really to be um, an expert in French law to deal with this kind of alternative dispute resolution. So I will not bore you in details on how it works. So we have like a very expedite proceeding called CIRELI, which is handled by AFNIC, the registry, directly. So this is for obvious cases, easy cases, and the decision will be rendered directly by AFNIC. We have a more advanced procedure called Parle Expert, and is handled by AFNIC with WIPO. And the decision are rendered by expert. I'm an expert, and I render some decision regarding .fr for this Parle Expert procedure. But AFNIC is really involved with the procedures, and so it's very different from UDRP, where you have an independent expert. For example, WIPO will be the center and will only administrate the procedure, and the expert will be free to render his decision. Here you are free, but it's not only the WIPO center, arbitration center, it's also AFNIC. And it's a very, very different type of dispute, really larger. Oh, yes. And very recently, so you have alternative dispute resolution for France, CIRELI, expedited cases, Parle Expert for more advanced, similar to UDRP, but with a very large broad of um, of different infringement you can have, not only fraud. You have, of course, the judicial procedure. There are not so many anymore in France because it's always a problem to execute decisions. And very recently, AFNIC has introduced a mediation system in 2023. So, of course, that's not for fraud, but as these procedures are much larger than fraud, sometimes people are really willing to find an amicable solution without litigation, and mediation is working quite well. Uh-uh. Yeah, just to give you like a short example of cases you can have. Well, in a Google car.fr cases on 2020, then you have, of course, the Google who try to get back the domain name Google car.fr, but perhaps they were not really well advised. But even if and the domain name was filed in bad faith, but they were not eligible under the domain name.fr regulation to hold the domain names. So this is very important to this, and that's why I insisted on who can hold a domain name in .fr, because as a US entity and they had no establishment in the EU, they could not hold the domain name. Also, the panel rejected the transfer request on the Google car.fr. Interesting also, for example, and this is really very different from UDRP today. We also protect geographical indication online. And this is very advanced. And I think that's France was one of the first to protect with alternative dispute resolution appellation of origin. For example, we have like an appellation for porcelain de Limoges. If you go in fine dining restaurants, you will probably know this kind of plate. And this is like protected by a geographical indication, and they could act on based on this geographical indication, um, against a domain name that reproduced the geographical indication, porcelain de Limanche.fr. So this is something that will not be possible, for example, with the UDRP. So the GI carries the same legal weight as trademarks in domain dispute. So of course we have the legal framework, judicial framework, but as I told you, it's there are not so many decisions because it's very difficult to get information about a domain name in France. And to get to know who is the owner, well, because of the GDPR and because the judges are really reluctant to allow the identification of domain name owners. So that's really explain why the alternative dispute resolution are more often used than the judicial framework. So a lot of you knows, well, domain name are not just addresses, but it's also very really valuable. And I wanted to give you some idea on the value of .fr because I know a lot of people here are involved with domain name monitoring and reselling of domain name. So just to put it in perspective, it's very poor. We are very poor compared to what you can get for a .com. I have not been aware of any domain name in .fr that was sold for more than 100,000 or a couple of 100,000 uh, euros or dollars when you compare to the prices you can get for a .com. And I gave only few, and we know that for 2 or 3 letters, it can go above the $5 million. It's not like you're gonna do you'll make a lot of money out of the domain names in .fr. But I think the market is emerging, and also because they are strategically valuable in France. It's interesting when you're using like a domain name for monetization, because with all the technique we have today, I think that .fr could be um, a good opportunity for that. And last, also, I think the second market of domain name in .fr will increase through the years because now we have a new law since 2022, and you can legally sell domain names through auction in France. So, like like you can sell a painting or you can sell anything through auction. You can also have auction fairs for domain names, or it could be part of an auction. And so this is really coming up, and this is growing. So it works very well, meaning that we'll have more fluidity on the .fr market, and perhaps a second market that will be stronger and stronger through the years. Okay, so that was what I wanted to tell you today. I don't know if you have any questions on this. Thank you for listening at the end of the day.